The rise of the sharing economy is disrupting not only the way hotels and car companies conduct their business, it's also disrupting how economists measure U.S. data. Bloomberg Industries economist Josh Wright joins us now with more in a way that disrupt is a bad thing and not a good thing.
Well, it could be a good thing in the long run. The point here is that in the short run, if we don't change the way we measure economic activity, there could be new forms of economic activity that the current statistics are missing. Because you think about what's going on here with Airbnb, Uber, you're sharing your home, you're sharing your cars, you're taking assets that were formerly purely personal possessions, and now you're putting them to commercial use. So that means, in theory, we shouldn't see as much investment in building new hotel rooms and new taxi cabs. Of course, that's just a first-order effect. In the longer run, that should free up capacity in our society to go and invest in other kinds of activity and other kinds of assets.
But I wonder if this changes the way we measure GDP. Does that mean we're under measuring GDP or we're overestimating GDP?
Well, there's the potential that we are missing some of this, these capital expenditures that are taking place, and that wedge might grow over time. Right now, the sharing economy is less than, the entire global sharing economy is estimated at less than 0.1% of the U.S. economy, so that's a very small amount at this point. But this kind of activity is only going to grow over time. And one of the things that's very interesting as an economist is how this isn't a challenge for just one industry, but this model is broadly applicable. It's disrupting so many different industries. We've got ride sharing in hotels, most prominent, but now there are new startups looking at white-collar jobs. And they used to say, if you're a barber, your job's safe from being outsourced, and other kinds of white-collar, service professionals. But now this is spreading.
Now roommates who are sharing an apartment are going to cut each other's hair. But is there a positive? The shared economy is good for the average American, the consumer, because now he or she has more money in their pocket to spend more money.
This is one of the biggest questions out there right now about how this is going to affect economic inequality, because on the one hand, you've got people who have the opportunity to get supplemental income. We know they're out there. We know it makes a big difference in their lives. On the other hand, you're taking some you can raise, for instance, rental rates because you're taking some housing stock off the market. So there are people who we know are using properties purely through Airbnb. Those properties could otherwise actually be rented out on a permanent basis to people, and families and communities that need this for their everyday life, not just for tourism.
Of course, you're not supposed to use your property strictly for Airbnb, right? Isn't that a no-no, at least here in New York?
Well, it's raising all these funky questions about what constitutes a rental property and what constitutes an ownership property, what constitutes a contractor, who's an employee, and what kinds of rights should they have. So we just had a case come down last week from a commission in California saying that contractors for Uber can, at least in some cases, be considered full employees, and they have to have all these benefits and rights associated with employee status. We actually put out a whole brief last week, the Bloomberg brief, a special supplement on the sharing economy, and one of the interesting questions we explore there is the fact that we'll probably need new kinds of hybrid categories. You're not just a contractor and you're not just an employee. You're going to need some kind of different bundle of rights. There was recently a new union set up by some freelancers working for Gawker, and they explored some of these questions. They said, we don't necessarily need pension benefits or retirement benefits. What we really need is health care, and really focusing on what they need in the 21st century.
Except, are these millennials, are these young people who are not thinking about their long-term future, and they should be. When they're saying, we don't need to worry about that, actually they do. It's just not something they're thinking about because it's not something they
don't know
today.
Yet how much they need to worry about it.
Well, that's always the question. Then you've got to have financial education out there. But we're looking at questions of what people really need and what kinds of arrangements they want to have with the companies that hire them.
All right, very cool. How can I get the Bloomberg Brief? Do I have to subscribe to the terminal?
You go to BriefGo, or you can look for it online. This one we made public because we thought it had so much thought-provoking
Oh, very
analysis.
cool.